And I would ask, like, what would you say are a few ways that people can live their life more fearlessly?
The number one way that you can do that is every single day do something that gets you out of your comfort zone. And people really are scared of being uncomfortable. And you do not need to be skydiving or bungee jumping or starting a company to be uncomfortable. Look, you can try a new coffee shop. You never know who the person in front of you might be that gives you the idea that you've been wanting or the job that you've been wanting. So doing something like that, even something that can be on a more personal thing, like maybe you really don't like walking, but like, why don't you try a walk once a week and see what comes out of it? So I would say definitely that. And also, even going back to what we said at the beginning, dipping your toes in other things. Like if you have a 9 to 5 traditional job that's different than what I do, what about pursuing something on the side or starting a profile on Fiverr or Upwork, trying out graphic design? Like, why not? And also, why not make some money out of it? Because I really do think the American dream is everyone wants to be very wealthy and ideally work for themselves or be flexible and be able to work from wherever. And the minute you can jumpstart that, even if you don't have that money idea, the closer you will be to getting that dream.
Yeah. Yeah. I think too, when it comes to like, I use the word uncomfortability, which I don't really think is a word. But like I was taught really early when I kind of got into this entrepreneurship world that successful people do what's uncomfortable until it becomes comfortable. And that's why they're successful. And I think it's like, to create a truly tremendous quality of life for you, and not just you, your family. Maybe you have kids one day, for making your parents proud. All these things, like if you want to create a tremendous quality of life, it's being willing to consistently get yourself uncomfortable as much as possible, right?
Beyond.
And it's like, I know at least for me that the moments that have changed my life the most and like shaped my life the most are the uncomfortable. And I love what you say before I get to this, that it's like, even just starting with the small things, like do the small things that get you uncomfortable, because at the end of the day, what you're doing is you're building an uncomfortability muscle, right? Like you're training yourself to go, I never go to that coffee shop. It's kind of weird. I don't know if I know anybody, but okay, I'm going to go.
Yes.
And then you're like, well, I never go on walks, but like, okay, I'll go on a walk. And then all of a sudden now when this big uncomfortable thing comes, your brain kind of goes, no, wait. But you did the coffee shop and it was a good result. And you did the walk and it was good. And I think what I've noticed in my life is it's those moments where you take an uncomfortable action and you almost feel like you're going to like throw up after you make this decision. You're like, oh, this is like so uncomfortable, so foreign. This could go so wrong. But when you really step into that and move through it, it's always the most life expanding experience. And like maybe you crush it, it goes really well. And on the other side, you know, the thing I think which stops people from taking action is you're like, well, then what if it doesn't go wrong and I fail and I'm a failure? And what are my friends going to think because of all that? But I think one of the biggest perspectives I've learned to take on, and I'm always practicing, it's, you know, I'm not perfect at this, but it's like realizing that failure is just stepping stones.
Yeah.
Like because you fail, you should not attach that to your identity of I'm a failure. It's like truly, if you want to create a tremendous quality of your life, again, kind of going down that rabbit hole, you fail, you learn how to improve, you learn how to get better, and you do it again.
Yeah.
Right. And if you consistently go down this path of, okay, how can I fail? How can I improve? How can I do better? It's like you're going to, again, create this tremendous quality of life for yourself. And I think a lot of the reason, unfortunately, people don't create these tremendous quality of lives is they don't want to get uncomfortable. And also when it comes to fear, there's so much fear around failing, when the reality is like fear is one of the most beautiful, life expanding teachers that you can ever get in your life to get you to where you really want to go.
So true. I am obsessed with the comment about what'd you say? The muscle, building
the uncomfortability muscle.
That is so true. And that's how often you have to do it. And I have to say, even when I started at Disney, I've never been so uncomfortable. Like I felt like I was in high school and I basically dropped out of high school. I mean, it was slightly traumatic. I was not aware of HR departments and board meetings. It was like, you're the new kid on the block and that sucks.
Yeah.
But I learned so much from that. And the amount of times I literally called my mom and was like, I'm so scared. Like to walk into this room and you're getting looked at like, who's this chick? Was so scary. But every day I was like, just go in and smile and be really nice and give them nothing to talk about and just make them like you.
Yeah.
And it's scary, but you just have to do it.
Yeah. And Yeah, it is scary. Like owning that fact, like you're going to step into this thing. And like one of the things, again, Tony Robbins was a mentor to me, says is he's like, courage is being scared shitless and doing it anyway.
Yeah.
You know, like for me, I've always debated getting this tattoo on my wrist. And it's like a combination of faith and courage. And I feel like in life, if you can have faith to like blindly step into something and just say like, I'm going to get uncomfortable. I'm going to like have the faith that it's going to work out. And then also, as you have that faith, build this courage of like, I'm scared shitless and I'm going to step it anyway. I feel like if you can combine those two, it makes such a difference in your life.
And look, if you don't have that faith, courage, your direction, purpose, but like, what do you have? You know, a few days ago, my boyfriend of like 8 months decided to call me and was like, I don't want to be in a relationship anymore. I've decided I want to answer to no one. And I was like, can I ask you why? And he was like, I am too obsessed with money and being like, I'm driven by money and that's really all I care about. And I was like, okay, if that's your answer, sure. But also, what are you going to do when you're at the top and you've made all of this money? And what we really have is relationships in life and connections with people. Yeah. And that's what really gives you happiness. And so I urge everyone to really look at like, okay, so you want to be really successful and you want to make all that money. And then when you're at the top, you can either have no one, or you can wait a little bit longer and be a little bit more persistent and a little bit more resilient. And that's how you will get everything. It's not that difficult to have everything. The only time it's difficult is when you give up.
Yeah. And it's like so many people, I think, have this ideology of, when I get the money or when I'm successful or like this, that, or the other, then I'm going to be happy. And it's like, there's so many sad stories of people that have the success, have the money, and they're miserable. You know, like there's a saying, it's like the worst thing is like someone who's rich and miserable. Cause you're like, you have everything. Like you got the resources, you got the money, you can do what you want, and you're miserable. It's like, you really do have to structure your life, I think, in a way where it's like like someone once taught me, it's like you have boulders in your life and then you have stones and then you have like pebbles and then grains of sand. And it's like the boulders are what are the most important things to you in your life. And if you almost had a vase, it's like first put in the boulders and then what's next important to you and then put in those like stones. And then eventually you get down to the grain of sands where it's like, what are the things that are still important to you, but you can fill in those empty pockets of time. And it's like building your life in the sense of what's most important to you. And I think, yeah, beautifully, like you're saying, realizing that it's not the money. It's not this, you know, I'm going to get here one day and I'm going to be this significant character in the world and I'm going to have all this attention. And it's sometimes almost simpler than we make it.
I agree. I think this may or may not, this is my favorite podcast episode I've ever done because all of this is just so critical in the journey to finding your purpose and just being ultimately happy. So I think that you and I both are on the same page with all these things, and everyone listening should truly like believe in this concept and not admire other people who are really just so money hungry or fame hungry or success hungry.
Yeah. And one thing you said there that I think is so fundamental is belief. And it's like I work with so many people, and I think the biggest first step is like believing that you can have a life that you really enjoy, that you love, that you get to do things that light you up. Like Jim Carrey has this one speech and it's been playing through my head, and I'm like, this dude articulated this most beautifully ever. He said, so many people in life choose practicality disguised as fear. That like so many people are like, I'm going to do this because it's the safe path and because this is the more practical thing, but really it's fear. It's fear. And it's like he tells the story of his dad where he's like, his dad built this life on safety and his dad could have been this great comedian, but he said like, I'm going to pick the safe route. And when Jim Carrey was 12, his dad got laid off and they had to do everything to survive. And he realized like, if you can fail at what you don't love, then you might as well take a chance of doing what you do love.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. And it's very easy to get comfortable. And even when I was young in Boston and was like, God, I'm dating this guy and this is going great. And I've got this apartment, but I'm too comfortable. I'm someone who thrives on being uncomfortable. Like I am desperate. I want to make mistakes. So if you are the opposite of that, then you don't have to be as obsessed with the idea of failure in return of being successful like I am. But I still urge you, if you have moments where you're like, is this really what I want for the rest of my life? Don't ignore those moments because they really are going to pave the path for the life that you're going to live. And at the end of the day, how many years do we get between like 80 and 100? I mean,
Yeah.
that's fucking scary to think of. And people are sitting there like, I hate my job. I hate my life. I hate my girlfriend. Why? You're going to die. Like, you are going to die. Like, well, you want to be on your deathbed being like, I could have had so much more if I tried a little bit harder or became a little bit more uncomfortable.